This is Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. And now here's Terri.
Hello and welcome to Heartrepreneur Radio and TV with Terri Levine. I'm your co-host Velma Gallant, and I'm excited to be here today. You can connect with Terri, me, and other like-minded heart-based business owners in the Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine Facebook group. So we invite you to go check it out. And if you like this show or any of our shows, please hit the like button. And we always love those 5-star reviews. Today's quote: "Money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish, but it will not replace you as the driver." Ayn Rand, and I hope I said the name right. Today's topic, as you may have guessed, is mindful money. And our special guest this week is Jonathan Deyoe. Jonathan is a seminarian turned Buddhist academic turned financial advisor. He is the founder and president of Mindful Money and the author of the 2017 Amazon bestseller, Mindful Money: Simple Practices for Reaching Your Financial Goals and Increasing Your Happiness Dividend. Mindful Money meets people where they are. Jonathan's team supports nearly 300 families with full-service financial planning and wealth management. They have digital services options for up-and-coming investors and digital financial education for folks just getting started. Jonathan speaks and writes about wealth issues. He is an advocate for both financial education and the fiduciary standard. He lives in Berkeley, California with his wife, 2 kids, and their cat, Posey. I didn't ask you about that one. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thanks, Val. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, mindful money. Tell me what that means to you.
So mindfulness, you may know, is just the non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. Mm-hmm. So mindful money has a lot to do with being non-judgmental about what's going on in the present moment as it affects our money. It has to do with understanding what are the levers we can actually pull to improve our own outcomes, and for us in the industry, the client outcomes. And those levers are often limited to things like planning, education, and patience. You know, the entire 95% of the stuff that comes across my desk says, do this now, do this now, do this now. And that just, it drives people crazy, and it doesn't really give us a solution for people. How do we improve actual outcomes?
Right. And so one of the things I heard was patience, which I think, especially for me, is an ongoing lesson that I get to expand on continuously. Being very mindful of my words around that. And one of the things that came up for me is, as you said, patience, was how a lot of people, especially as they get further into their investments, closer to the time when they may be considering wanting to retire, they watch their money continuously. And as you know, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, the markets will go up and down and up and down. And what we receive for income from our investments will do the same thing. What do you suggest to someone who is statement watching?
It's a great question. I have 3 clients that they don't look at their statements, they log in every single day. And so those 3 clients, I know, are the ones I'm going to have to spend the most time with, because they're watching it very, very closely. So they're getting emotionally invested in a single day's outcome, not remembering that we've talked about this a million times in the past, and saying, some days going to be good, some days going to be bad. That's how we create an average long-term return, right? That's how that comes about. Some days are good, some days are bad. And that's okay. That's what we signed up for. That is the natural functioning of markets. It's sun rises, sun sets, markets go up, markets go down. It's the same thing. And so what do you do? Well, first, you can get some education on the topic. There is research done on this that says actually the people who do the best look the least often. And I think it was Fidelity did a study, and their best performing accounts were people who forgot they had accounts and didn't look, didn't pay any attention to it, didn't even know they were there. And so those are the ones that they purchased something, some sort of a diversified fund, and just let it go and just let it be there for 10, 15 years. And they look back and I go, oh, wow, this did really, really well. Well, it's because you didn't tinker with it, right? So stop tinkering. The second thing after education, the second thing you can do is you actually do some planning. And we talk about mindfulness. I don't know if you're a meditator, Val, but when you meditate, you have a focal point. Oftentimes, beginning meditators focus on their breath. What that means is you're meditating, you're focusing on your breath, you note when you're distracted, and you bring yourself back to your breath, right? Mm-hmm. So in personal finance, same thing, your breath is your plan. So your plan tells you what you should be doing, tells you the behaviors you're supposed to be employing. Am I supposed to rebalance now? Am I supposed to be saving this month? How am I supposed to be invested? That's what your plan says. And so when you get nervous, when that thing hits us, whatever that thing might be in the present moment, focus back on the plan, and the plan gives you the behaviors you're supposed to be employing.
Oh, I like that. The plan is the breath.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So tell me about some of the mindfulness things that you can bring into your plan. Like one of the things that came up for me, because my history, I did do some banking and I'd been trained in mutual funds and that kind of thing. And so the averaging is something that makes sense to me. And I know in some of my roles where we had the opportunity to, buy shares or invest in RSPs and that kind of thing, it was continuously putting money in there on a regular basis. Is that something that you include in this breath?
Sure. So that,
or is it different for everyone?
Let's go back to how you get to your plan. So
yeah,
planning is not a light exercise. And I have seen, I've spoken in rooms of people and I've said, who here has a plan? And everyone raised their hand. And then you go, you pull back the onion a little bit and say, well, what does your plan look like? And they show you a pie chart. My plan is I have this much in equities, this much in fixed income, this much in cash. It doesn't look at cash flows, doesn't look at money coming in, money going out, doesn't look at taxes, doesn't look at kids' education or data retirement or those kinds of things. So what qualifies as a plan in the financial services industry is perhaps not always a plan. And so when we talk about planning, we're talking about going through a process of sort of pre-experiencing your life. Think about the timeline. Think about when you'll need money to send your kids to school, when you'll need money to retire, when you might need money for that emergency, and so put it all on the timeline. Okay, that's the plan. And when you have that all on the plan, part of that is every single month I have to save 12% of my income. Every single month, that 12% of my income gets split up into this portfolio. And so that's that dollar cost averaging. That's that committing a certain amount of capital every single month so that 25, 30 years from now, those things that I have said I want, the things that I have agreed to make trade-offs for can come to fruition. So right. That's that dollar cost averaging. That's part of it for sure.
Okay. So I heard a lot of stuff in there, and I know, so it's easier for me to take from my own experience in my own life as I'm listening to these things. And I know that, I do have an emergency fund that I've had to tap into from time to time, and I was very grateful that I had it. I did put a strategy in place with respect to investing for my son's education, and and also for my own retirement. And I think what I want to point out is that I didn't have the opportunity to invest, 12%. But I didn't let that stop me from investing something and still making still having the plan, still having the direction, and making even a smaller commitment to that plan. Because I think it's important for people to, I can't do it the way so-and-so does it, but you can still do something.
Yes, so important. And that's one of it's so interesting that you went there. That's perfect, because so many people say, well, I can't do that, so I'll do nothing. And, I have what a millennial generation and younger employees in the office. And I say to them, hey, it's the 401k is there. We match your 401k. Just put 5% in and we match 5%. So you're saving 10% then. Like that's awesome. Just do that. And sometimes it's hard to get to convince them to do 2%, even though we're going to double it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's another thing to be mindful of is that we're always becoming. So if you're young and you're just starting out and your salary's not very big or your income's not very big, or if you've just had a debacle in your life and you're a divorce, somebody dies, something happens in your life and you've got to restart things, just start small. You will become accustomed to that small start and be able to increase it. So we are always becoming. You can always push to save a little bit more, a little bit later. Starting now gets you to that faster. Start with 1%, start with a little bit, start with $50. It's really easy to do that. And then improve that over time. The trade-off you're making in that situation, if you don't have enough income that you can just save some immediately, then you have to work to increase that income so that you can save some later. We will all require some kind of a portfolio or something to live off of when we're 65, 70, 72. We will all need that. So the question is, how do we get there? What do we have to give up to make that happen?
Agreed. And I know for myself, what I did was I started out small, right? I think I did do 2% in the beginning at this particular point in my life. And I increased it 0.5% every year because I'm like, I didn't miss it. I handled it. I got through. It didn't scare me. So I would, and 0.5% didn't scare me either. So I figured, well, if I can live with it the way it's been, I can live with another 0.5% going in there, and baby stepped my way forward to, I think, when I completed that particular role, I was investing almost 8%, and 4% of it got matched. So in the end of the day, it was 12%.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, again, baby steps, like we teach that in all of our other areas of our life. Why can't we do that with our finances as well?
Well, we teach nothing in finance. That's probably the biggest problem, is there is no education in finance, and that's killing us. That's really hurting us as a culture.
I agree with that 100%. I know my son, as he was heading through high school, was, I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to use this. And I remember thinking when I was heading through high school, like, why aren't they teaching us how to manage a checkbook? Right. Why aren't they teaching us how to, right now my son is contacting me regarding credit cards, not understanding the difference between the current balance and credit available and all of these kinds of things. I'm grateful he's asking the questions. I'm super grateful he's asking the questions, but we don't share that knowledge as a society. That is left up to chance that the parents have understood it and can pass it on to their kids.
Yeah, I remember I moved into it must have been 1990. I moved into the dorms at Montana State University. And when you got to the dorms, there was a box on my desk. And the box, you open it up, there was a cookie from a local, shop. And there were 4 credit card applications and a pen and some other stuff. So I'm 18 years old. I have my first credit card applications because I just decided I'd go to college. I'd never dealt with credit before, it just is mind blowing. Mm-hmm. We give people all the tools to hurt themselves and no training on how to use it. It's actually one of the reasons when we were quarantined, back when we had to, we started creating our courses, and these courses are designed specifically we have a course that's specifically for your son. That is, what is credit? What is debit? What are these pieces? What are these tools we can use so that we can actually have a better outcome? So we can learn the basics so that when we have faced with a decision, we have the tools to make the decision. People who know are better off than people who don't. So more education in this space would be so much better.
Well, I think with education, it turns that plan into a breath, right?
Yeah.
Because you can relax into it rather than if you don't understand it, then it scares you, or it potentially can scare you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest learnings when it comes to finance is that we can't know everything. Like being able to sit not knowing, being able to act not knowing, based on history, based on probability, based on these are all things that we don't have a very good understanding of probability. We don't have a very good understanding. We ask somebody what happened 10 years ago. What was the important event that happened 10 years ago? You'll get 7 different answers. I mean, there's no consistent response to that because our lives are all different, right? I remember what happened to me 10 years ago. I don't remember the big global issue that occurred 10 years ago. So it's that limitation of knowledge is one of those big things we need to be aware of.
Well, and I think too, part of having that plan turn into a breath would also be trusting the person who's educating you and being that expert for you, because we can't be an expert in everything. Right. It's impossible. And so what I'm really good at, I get an opportunity to be a contribution to other people with that. And I get to receive other people being a contribution to me through their expertise. So, I have a financial advisor because I'm not an expert at that, but I also see the value in having that plan. And I got to tell you, I trust my financial advisor. I adore her. And I do feel that I can relax into what we have determined is my plan for today, and understanding that I get to transform my plan tomorrow as my circumstances change. So we are at about the halfway mark here, and I want to make sure that our listeners get an opportunity to connect to you. I mean, it sounds to me, we just touched briefly on some of the opportunities that you have, like just, understanding a credit card and how it works. That in itself, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of what I think you have to offer. So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Thanks for asking. So the best place to find any information about everything that we do is mindful.money. It's our website, mindful.money. No .com, just mindful.money. And you'll find all the services we have. There's a page within services that talk about courses. You can go check out a course. There's all kinds of different price points. If you're in the Berkeley, Oakland area, California, where we are, we actually offer it for free within our community. So we give it to young adult groups just to help people out.
That's amazing. That's absolutely wonderful. Okay, so mindful.money. I like that. It's easy. Okay, so let's get back into this. So we talked a little bit about having a plan. What are some of the important aspects of a plan? And maybe even what's the first aspect of a plan for someone to look at?
So we always talk about, people think about planning as, okay, bring in your statements, let's look at all this data, let's think about all this stuff. There's something that comes before that, though, that many people skip. And that's, I think, kind of what you're getting at a little bit. So your plan should be built on your vision of the life well lived, of your well-being, what will make you happy. That's why we talk about the happiness dividend all the time. Your plan should both help you reach financial goals and increase your happiness dividend. And what we mean by that is there are well-researched topics that psychology has covered, religion's covered, philosophy has covered for thousands of years. Things like your health, relationships with other people, gratitude, generosity. These are the kinds of things that when practiced and put in place in your life, you'll have you'll have a better life. You'll be happier. Okay, if that's the case, and we know that's the case, that's what all the research says, then what do we do to make sure we have those things built into the plan? Well, we don't do things like we buy the house 2 hours away from work. So we have to commute 2 hours each way every day. We don't do the thing where we work 60, 70 hours a week because we don't see our families. We don't have time for anything else. So we can build a life around what we view as really, really important to us once we start with understanding what our here is, all of our hopes, all of our dreams, all of our values, and understand where our there is, where we want to go, all the milestones on the way. Once we have those two things really dialed in, then it just honestly becomes a complex math problem. It becomes a game of Monopoly where it's, stuff's coming in, you pass go, you get $200, then you buy another piece of property as you go around, whatever. So it's just a game of resource management. Once you know what your here and your there are, you start making the pieces line up. Then you have to make trade-offs. And that's where people break down. So if we don't think about what we want, and we're just making trade-offs with guesswork as we go forward, then we're going to choose in the moment something that doesn't make us happy long-term. That's how the human mind works. The immediate becomes critical, but the immediate, sometimes you have to go through a little challenge and difficulty to get to goodness and wonderful long-term, right? So that trade-off is over time, and understanding the here and the there and the trade-offs. That's how you create your plan. Everything is based on that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's said a lot. In order to get where you're going, you need to know where you are, and you need to know your destination, and then you map it from there. And so what I'm hearing is the same thing. You need to know where you are financially, where you want to go financially, and then you have the opportunity to map your way there.
And it's not just financial though, too, right? It's values. It's what's important to you, right? Because it all should be built on that. That's what you should really understand first, so that you know what trade-offs to make.
And that again makes a lot of sense to me as well, because we end up with, you're supposed to buy a house. You're supposed to have one in the suburbs. You're supposed to have your 1.25 children, and all of these things. And what if you're buying a house because that's what you're supposed to do, but you'd actually just love to travel, right? So that's the values thing, and what's really important to your happiness. If you're the kind of person who loves to travel, is investing in a large home in the suburbs what's going to make you happy?
It's so interesting. We go through the planning process with a client, and we ask them these questions, and they already have that house. At the end of the planning, they'll be like, I should really sell that house. It would enable so much more of my life. And we're like, exactly. I don't know why you have that house. Let's think about how we make that transition, right? Get to what you want out of life.
But I think that's evidence of the level of lack of education that we actually have in this area, because so we have a lot of people who listen that are entrepreneurs, right? So if that's part of who you are and how you want to be out in the world, then that should be part of that same plan as you're building it forward. So I think it's super important to pay attention to the interplay between your happiness and your money, and they should be holding hands going forward.
No, it's true. I mean, one feeds the other easily.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So is there anything that we have in our, because we've covered a lot of area in such a short amount of time, is there any important message that you've wanted, like that you really want to get out to people that we haven't touched on yet? So
there is, and that's one of the challenges we have, is we live in a culture where it's the thing we do right now. And expanding that vision to 30, 40, 50 years of time. I have maybe 40 years, maybe 50 years if I'm really lucky ahead of me. And even though I have a little bit of gray, right, I still have 50 years to go. And sometimes when we're talking to people, they are only thinking 2 years, 2 years, 3 years ahead. They're not thinking that long term. Mm-hmm. One of the beautiful things about having a plan is the world is going to send us a curveball. And it's going to tell us to change everything. And the people on the media tell us to change everything, tell us to do things differently. When you have a plan, the plan can be the tool that pulls you through the hard times. Because hard times are coming. There's no way to avoid them. They happen to all of us, one form or another. They're going to happen to you. So if we take that for granted, how do we get through them? Well, if we have a plan, even if we have to make changes in the plan can help us pull through difficult times because we've envisioned it. And that vision, that this is what I want my life to look like, that vision can be the thing that draws us on. When, gosh, it's 6 a.m. I don't want to get up and take that run. It's the 7th year of my academic program. I don't want to sit for my defenses. Whatever that thing is that you're fighting with, having a plan, having a clear vision of that future pulls you through. And it's really, really important in the dark times to have that happen. And that's one of the things we focus on a lot is, trouble's coming. I don't know what form it's going to take, but trouble's coming. How will you get through that trouble? Well, let's do some planning and figure it out. Figure out what that vision is for your life.
Brilliant. I like that because I know that, divorce can happen, health issues can happen. There's a lot of different things that can happen. And you may choose to tweak your vision as well, but that's life. That's what we do all the way through anyways. And so why wouldn't we incorporate some of these principles into our finances and turn it into a breath rather than, a fear?
Yeah.
So brilliant. So I want to make sure that our listeners have an opportunity to connect to you. So I'd really love for you to share your website again and a couple of the things that they have available to themselves there.
Sure. So on the website, mindful.money, no.com, just mindful.money. You go to the courses tab. And when you go to the courses tab, you go through to see the library of courses. There's actually a free course in there. And the free course is a goal setting course. And it takes if you do it really well, if you put your heart into it, it can take you a week to go through it. But it's a fantastic course. I highly recommend it for everybody. It's the beginning of creating the vision that you can plan forward to.
Awesome. And I think what came up for me as you were sharing that is that we could baby step that as well, because we can go through, deal with what we're able to deal with, vision what we're able to vision, and at least have that starting point, and then go through again and expand on it and know that you don't have to get it right the first time.
And you won't get it right the first time.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us here. I know I gleaned a lot of value out of what you shared. There was a lot of acknowledgement for myself on what I did get right as I've been moving through my journey. And it's also given me some ideas on how to support my family, my son, as he moves into his journey, because he's starting earlier. And what if I could equip him a little bit better than how I came into it? I mean, it's never too late, but what if we can equip our children sooner? So I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I want to thank our listeners for showing up. I hope you received value from this and that you are getting an opportunity to turn your finances and your financial plan into the breath. And make sure that you head over to Facebook and look for Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine. Join us there, and you'll be able to learn from a lot of other heart-based business owners and continue to move your life and your business forward. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next show.
You've been listening to Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog, or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.